Upside down and inside out, we're about to show you all what it's all about. Whoop, here we are. I'm here with Sterling Holmes. My name is Matt, tag team Connor. Sterling, how are you doing this week?
Dude, I'm doing great. The weather in Kansas City is beautiful. I went on a bourbon trail tour this past weekend down there in Louisville. Actually, we went to Versailles. Yeah, you heard that right, Versailles, not Versailles, not like the treaty. I asked, "Don't you worry?" And he goes, "Well, you don't call Paris Paris, do you?" And I go, "Fair point." So bourbon, beer, football, life is good, baby.
What uh, like bourbon distilleries did you hit?
Went to Woodford Reserve. That's my typical go-to. I love Woodford Reserve. Picked up some double oak. It's incredible bourbon. I got some specialty ones as well. Went to Woodford Reserve, had a nice tour there, learned about how they make it. Very cool. No wonder so many people went blind back in the day. Let's be real now. This is a science to making bourbon. It's not just you go in your backyard and throw some stuff together.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Then I hit up Buffalo Trace. Crazy. Buffalo Trace was sold out at 10:30 a.m. My dumbass goes, yeah, it's hard to find in Kansas City, so I'll go to the distillery and pick some up. No, still sold out. Then we hit up a new one called Jepta Creed. That one was good. I like Jepta Creed. Their original bourbon, not my favorite. Didn't think it was even good, but some of their specialty bourbon that they had was very good. It's the newest one on the Bourbon Trail. So I'll tell you what, good times.
We actually went to the Jeptha Creek like right after it opened. So they were
Yeah.
like, they didn't even have a lot to show because they were like, well, you need years to make bourbon, and we're like 6 months old. So they just had like some weird like things that you could taste and but they were like building it out, but you could see the concept for what they were trying to build was like pretty new. By the way, we were sitting. I went with like five guys. We do this whole. There were six of us total on this whole like bourbon trail trip a few years ago. You were talking about Woodford Reserve, and they've got this beautiful room with like this big fireplace,
Mhm.
and there's like these tables all around where they're like they have. If you've never been, they have like a tasting wheel with like 30 words, and they're like try this bourbon, and you're like, which one is this? Is this like earthy or chipmunk or like whatever the word is supposed to be there, right? And then he like goes around asking like, so what notes do you get? What notes do you get? And then he like asked my friend who like never wants to be put on the spot at all. And he's like, well, why don't you try it? What hints are you getting? And my friend just goes, white privilege. And then like the whole room is just like, what? And then anyway, we got kicked out. We got kicked out of Woodford Reserve. That's what happened. So that's what. Anyway, it went south real fast. That was my bourbon trail experience. We had too much bourbon at that point. I think we were tired of it.
Yeah, sounds
Anyway,
like it. Man, okay. We will get to some Chiefs talk today. Flapjack City says you missed Blanton's. No, Blanton's is part of Buffalo Trace. Yes, they were also sold out of Blanton's. Chiefer65 says how much longer till preseason? What? Bourbon talk doesn't get you going? Come
dude,
on. Come on. We're in Kansas City. We're bourbon, football, and beer. And speaking of beer, KC Beer Company, the best sponsor for the best beer. We appreciate all of you who have been so supportive all season long. Now, as we head into the off season, you guys helped make Arrowhead Lager a massive, massive success. If you've not had a chance to go try KC Beer and try everything that they have there, the Hefeweizen, the Dunkel. I'm actually drinking one of the limited edition Weizenbach Dunkels myself. Nice little 7.5%. It's really good, man. We say it every single week, and it's because it's true. They are a great company. They brew with only 4 ingredients. Go to KC Beer Co. Make sure you try it. Tell them Arrowhead Addict and the crew sent you there. We do appreciate that all the time. But KC Beer Co. Dare to beer different.
Dare to Beer Different is right. Folks, we are in the midst of the 2023 NFL Combine is happening right now. Later on this week, you will see a lot of the familiar drills, like the 40-yard dash, the bench press, vertical leap, broad jump, shuttle runs. All those things are happening in Indianapolis for the next several days. But today's big takeaway was actually the Chiefs. Some teams have their coaches speak. Some teams have their general managers speak, depending on what's happening in the life of the franchise. The Chiefs had both speak today back to back. So earlier today, if you tuned in via NFL Network or the Chiefs on digital channels, we heard Andy Reid speak for 15 minutes, and then Brett Veach spoke for 2 minutes. So within that time frame, they spoke on a number of things. Sterling, I just want to unpack, like here at the start of the show. I want to unpack a few of the things that Reed and Veach were asked about, that they talked about, that we were able to kind of maybe get a better understanding of as the offseason is going to go on here. First of all, the coaching carousel has kind of settled. We lost Bieniemy. The Chiefs already made that move official to fill his spot with Matt Nagy. And we talked about this a little bit last week. But the one remaining opening was quarterbacks coach, right? And quarterbacks coach was coming down. Like, we didn't know really what was going to happen. There was a meme out there that said maybe Alex Smith had been hired, and then that turned out not to be true. Some of us, I think, thought maybe Cliff Kingsbury may like come in and be a new voice on the staff. Andy Reid said today that they actually did look at a new voice to come in, but they decided not to, and they promoted from within. David Girardi got the move. Curious there, what thoughts you have about QB coach in general and what Reid had to say.
So when it comes to David Girardi, my main thought process here is things are going well. If this is a voice that Patrick likes, stick with it. I'm sure Patrick Mahomes had some input in this, and that's what makes me comfortable with this move. Not only that, I do think it's impactful, just from within. Not going out, but from within. I'm not saying you always have to do that, but when you get promotions from within, I think it helps you keep guys who are very talented, maybe 1 extra year, maybe even 2 extra years. Who knows if Bieniemy could have taken this exact same job a few seasons ago, but he goes, I'm loyal to Kansas City. I have some ties here. We're having this success. Now, you're not going to keep everyone forever. We know this. Matt Nagy eventually went off, got his own head coaching job. Doug Peterson the same way. Kafka, he's got his promotion to OC, right? But maybe they stuck around a year longer. And I think there's something to this where the Chiefs also will welcome you back if they think you did a good job here. They didn't sever ties. They thought, hey, Matt Nagy was good as an OC, as a QB coach. Sure, he didn't have the success he would have liked as the head coach of the Bears, although I don't get why folks make him out to be a disaster in Chicago. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky, he won Coach of the Year, and they won 12 games. He was 34-31 all-time record-wise with Chicago. That's not a disaster, but I digress. The point is, when you promote from within, that helps keep talent potentially, in my mind, a year or 2 longer than if they're going to look outside, bring someone else in. Then you're constantly looking for other jobs. So them promoting Girardi from within, I think this helps. I like the move. Again, Mahomes has the final say. Mahomes was cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I like what you just said. I like what that does for the culture. Picture any of our workplaces. Picture any of them, no matter where you work. If your workplace, where you're at right now, or maybe where you're home from drinking right now and then listening to us, whatever it is, if your workplace is known as a place that does good by its own employees, that treats them well, that promotes from within, that honors loyalty in that kind of way, that's only going to build the culture of that place to be a healthy place to be. I want to be here. I want to put down roots. I'm going to think long-term about my investment in this organization. I like that. That said, I was also a little bit excited about the possibility of adding some external voices to familiar rooms. I think that'd be great. So we will see what David Girardi has up his sleeve. In terms of who David Girardi is, it's there's kind of not a lot out there, right? He was a grad assistant for 3 years at Northwestern. His last year was also Mike Kafka's only year at Northwestern as well. And then they both joined the Chiefs thereafter. So I don't know if Mike Kafka went to Andy Reid and said, "Hey, I got a guy," but now that guy is the Chiefs' new quarterback coach. So look, he's been in the room. He was assistant QB coach last year. He's been an assistant passing game analyst. It's not like he's a total stranger. So yeah, it's great. Side note, the other guy. Oh, go ahead, Sterling.
No, I was going to say just very, very quickly. I think it works when you have this sort of front office, this sort of, and like what Mark Johnson says, hiring from within promotes consistency. I'm all for that. It works when you have a winning culture and you have this winning front office. You have a organization with this culture already built and guys they trust. And it works here in Kansas City. It won't work everywhere. One other example here, which I find very interesting. You look at what Kansas City does, they're typically always at the forefront of innovation at developing this culture, right? From the top down, they agree on a lot of things. Not saying you always want to agree. There's been some pushback, right? But they agree on the main principles. You look over in Tennessee, the new GM for the Titans on the philosophy for team building goes, it's cute and sexy to play Golden State Warriors football in September and October when the weather is good, but the teams that play in January play tough defense and run the football. That is antiquated. It's outdated. The Chiefs have hosted 5 straight AFC championship games. The Golden State Warriors, by the way, won 4 championships since 2015. Like, this is what I'm saying. Yeah, but my point is, the front office for Kansas City, you trust from top down. They understand. They're at the forefront. They're not at the back. They're not trying to stick with what worked in 1990. It's why it works when you have Brett Veach, the Hunts, when you have Andy Reid. And again, I trust their decision-making. It's why I think it's a popular move hiring from within, because they've grown used to this culture. They've grown used to being at the forefront of technology, or at least innovation when it comes to offensive-minded coaching. Again, this is partly why I'm pretty thrilled with the hire, or at least the promotion, I should say, of Girardi.
Yeah, there's something to be said for continuity. You and I discussed this in the conference championship game when both the Bengals and the Chiefs had these long-standing coordinators on both sides. It means a lot when a team has that level of continuity. At the same time, you and I have both applauded Joe Cullen in the last year, right? As this new voice who was needed at a position, who came in. Obviously, the Chiefs don't need a new voice at quarterback. It's not like Patrick Mahomes is sitting there like, oh, if only we could find the key to unlock this lock, it would be great. I mean, that's not needed, and that's fine. It's interesting to me, and I wanted to ask you about this because you're a Mizzou guy. The guy, Andy Reid, I was a little surprised that Andy Reid actually went there. But Andy said, hey, the guy we actually talked to, Bush Hampton, is a Mizzou guy. He was the Mizzou guy last year, QB coach or OC last year. And then this year he took a job at Boise State, which was his alma mater. Now he's OC at his alma mater. That's usually like a great place that coaches want to land. Like, let me go work for the place I went to college, the place that developed me. You want to develop guys there too. Like, so I'm sure that was a great job for him. The Chiefs went there to try to wiggle him free. Like, hey, do you want to leave your alma mater for a Super Bowl champ? I mean, that's probably a tough decision. In the end, Hampton decided to stay at Boise State. But it was interesting to me that the Chiefs have been looking as close as Mizzou, going, hey, let's ask this guy next season and see if he wants to come aboard.
Yeah, I will say, don't know a ton about the guy, so I'm not going to lie to you. Mizzou didn't have the best quarterback play last year. They didn't have the best talent at quarterback either, but they definitely didn't have the best quarterback play last year. I'm okay. I'm okay with that one. It was like with Steve Wilkes. When Steve Wilkes went to Mizzou, he of course had his worst year ever as a coordinator in the history of his entire tenure, and then he goes elsewhere and has success, whether that was in Carolina. But it just makes me laugh. When you go to Mizzou, just because you went to Mizzou doesn't mean you're a great guy or a great coach or coordinator. Trust me, I wouldn't know. So when it comes to Joe Cullen, that is very quickly, you brought up a good point. The Chiefs needed new thoughts on the defensive side of the ball. They needed to improve. Something wasn't clicking. Offensively, everything's clicking. Don't mess with a good thing. Defensively, they needed something because it wasn't clicking. And we've seen the entire defensive line, for the most part, give credit to Joe Cullen and Cullen specifically. They've gone out of their way at times to call out what he's done. So I think that's a little different than bringing in new blood when it comes to the quarterback room.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. One other thing Andy Reid mentioned in his presser was he was asked about the wide receivers and just mentioned Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore specifically, saying these guys are going to have larger roles in the offense next year. I think that's pretty obvious. I think we all knew that, right? A second-year player like Sky Moore is going to play more than his rookie year, and Kadarius Toney arrives at midseason and is injured for half of his time with the Chiefs. Of course, they're going to have larger roles, but to have Andy say that and really sort of point to them as, hey, they've grown now that they know the system. We're going to lean on them more. How big do you see their roles next year? And then how does that go into maybe the projections of what else you need to add if they're going to have a larger role?
I think it's large. I also think part of it could be, hey, Juju Smith-Schuster, we like you a lot, but look what we got right here. We got a couple of young guns waiting in the wings. Maybe they can use this for contract negotiations. What does this say about MVS? I obviously know he's under contract, but they can get out from MVS's contract if they would like. Now, I don't think they do. I think MVS was at times unfairly hated on. I mean, how big was he in the playoffs? Yes, he's not consistent, but he's not been consistent his entire NFL career. But at times he can produce like in that game, a wide receiver one. He reminds me a little bit of a Sammy Watkins. In his contract, if you look at it, what he's getting paid for wide receiver contracts have been, it's in line. You might not get that production for his price point. McCole Hardman, I think we've all almost assumed he's gone, but you know what you do when you assume? You make asses out of you and me. We did the same thing with Watkins. He came back. We did the same thing with Frank Clark. He came back. So maybe there is some room for Hardman to come back if his market does not materialize. But Toney, in my opinion, outperformed Hardman either way. Sky Moore, when he had the opportunity, outperformed guys even like MVS and McCole Hardman, given the opportunity. I don't know what this means for Justin Ross or John Ross. I think John Ross, we don't see at all. I think Justin Ross, as much as I want him to succeed, the lack of talk about him from the team itself is a little disheartening, right? But I do think, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney will get big roles next season. And again, I think this could be a ploy to Juju saying, hey, we'd love to have you back, but we're not going to pay market value. We trust these two guys who are underneath you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to me to see how heavy they go shopping. If they make a first-round pick for a wideout, that's going to be quite telling. That maybe there was some like smoke screen here. But if they just settle for like another third round investment, a fourth round investment, just another guy kind of thing, then that will speak very highly.
They've won a Super Bowl with, for the most part, just guys.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Here's the caveat there, though, right? Here's the caveat, because you say, in fact, this has been some of the battle, like on Twitter, like I've been a proponent. In fact, we'll talk about this in a little bit. We'll talk about wide receiver in the battle here. You know what? We're going to get into this later. I don't need to get into it now. We'll save it. And then we got a good fight later, folks, coming up, me versus Sterling about wide receivers. Hey, the other thing that Andy Reid and Brett Veach spoke to, and I want to touch on this here, and we'll major on this at the front of the hour. Orlando Brown Jr. Look, Brett Veach said, look, there's a long road ahead. There's a lot to get done. I mean, with any major extension, you're reading the market, you're spinning 10 other plates financially that you have to take into consideration. Like there's so much there. It's not like you just go in a room, figure out a number, come out the other side and be done with it. But here's the thing. Andy spoke very highly of Orlando, and has over time, loves him. The whole team seems to love him. Veach loves him. And Veach today spoke with a lot of cautious optimism that the Chiefs were going to get something done. And not like Not like, oh yeah, he'll be back next year on the tag, but sort of a, yeah, I'm optimistic that we can get something done. Here's what he said. He said, yeah, probably to a certain extent we'll need some cap space. But then he said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is about Frank Clark. What am I even talking about? I'm reading comments about Frank Clark when it comes to Orlando. At the same time, Beach was also positive about Orlando. Like, does that excite you to think that maybe they're optimistic about a long-term deal? Are you hoping instead that it is just a franchise tag? Like what are your hopes for Orlando, and what do you think is going to happen?
Well, obviously, I think franchise tag might be best for the team and fan.
Yeah,
Realistically, the franchise tag is going to come in at just under 20 million, right? Which is going to be
yeah.
cheaper than what an
Oh yeah,
AAV long-term deal is probably looking at. But
yeah.
you also want to have some sort of consistency going forward. I want to point something out. As much as we've ripped on Orlando Brown Jr. all season long, and for good reason in the first half of the season, he really stepped up second half of the season and into the playoffs. He had one bad half against the Jags in the playoffs. The first half, I will admit it, but dude stepped up after that, even in the Super Bowl in the week prior. Now, when it comes to the first half of the season, I wonder if some of that was from the not quite holdout, but there was a lot of contract talk
Sure.
hanging over his head. I wonder if he had money on his mind, and that was what caused the early season struggles. The fact he was able to step into his own and progress gives me a lot of hope. Now, I'm very harsh on Orlando Brown Jr. sometimes because when you want to be paid like an elite left tackle, well, you better perform like an elite left tackle. Now, to me, a fair number comes into play here at around 5-year, 110 million. I know some folks in the Discord channel, which, by the way, if you want to join the Discord channel, check out the YouTube link below. It's somewhere in there. Richard will hook you up with that. We talk all about Chiefs, football, beer, baseball, books, a little bit of everything. But someone in there posted 5-year, 110 million seems about fair. And I go, that would be my max. That's a 22 mil AAV. You want to give around 70 million guaranteed, be my guest. But that feels about the going rate for a good, not elite left tackle. You look at that being only maybe 1.5 million or so less than Trent Williams. You're saying Sterling, he's not Trent Williams money, right? I go, I agree. But when you look at the quarterbacks and how people get paid in the NFL, no one's sitting here saying Deshaun Watson's more valuable, deserves more money than Mahomes. It's how it goes. It's next man up. If he's next man up, but still less than a couple of the two highest paid dudes in the NFL, that makes sense. But if you're getting in 25 million range, I say no. I say that's not worth it at that point. That's where I stand. I think 5-year, 110 million should be fair on both sides. I think both sides should be amicable to a 22 million per year AAV. You lock him up long term. He has that security, and now you have your guy protecting the $500 million investment in Mahomes. When you draft at 31, not 32, because the Dolphins lost that draft pick from tampering with what's a Tom Brady, I believe. You're not going to realistically get a plug and play left tackle in today's NFL. As great as Veach is, you can't make a left tackle just appear out of nowhere. So I think Brown's the right answer, but you have to come to the right price.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be threading that needle. I think you're totally right. I mean, I think I would prefer the franchise tag. Like you said, it's good for fan, it's good for team. It's not good for him, and maybe morale, and um, like even for his teammates. There probably is some chemistry issues here that are hard to quantify in numbers, and maybe it's worth a couple $1,000,000. Like I mean, like you don't want his teammates upset on his behalf. You don't want to come across as cheap. You don't want to come across as anti-player friendly. I guess it would be player unfriendly in that way, whatever. So yeah, it'll be something to watch, but it does seem like all parties involved are open, are discussing, are interested. When that's true, it's hard to believe that something won't get worked out there. And I agree with you. Orlando Brown took his lumps early in the year and then was branded with a like a mixed bag sort of label. Like, oh, this guy, he's not like when he wants money up here, but he's way down here. And the truth is, in the postseason, he really was reaching up to here. And in fact, if we just go off the last like 3 to 6 games, including the postseason, you're like, hey, this guy deserves more money than Trent Williams because he should be next man up, reset the market. I'm not saying he's better than Trent Williams. I'm saying just like what you said, the next great tackle is going to reset. That's what happens every year, right? Kenny Golladay got shitloads of money, and
the Chiefs aren't the New York Giants. Okay,
I get that.
The Baltimore Ravens aren't the Browns. There's a reason why everyone points to the Browns, saying you screwed the NFL with the guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson. The Chiefs aren't these teams.
Somebody's going to make more money than Trent Williams. Somebody's going to make more money than Trent Williams.
I don't think it's him. I don't think it's Orlando Brown Jr. Personally.
I wasn't saying that. I was just saying. All I was saying was he was branded too early. And then later in the season, when he's that good, I'm saying it's hard to unbrand someone. And it's important for us to not just throw those labels out. All I was saying was I was proud of you for coming back on your criticism of Brown. And it's good to say, hey, I was hard on him, but now I'm not. He stepped up, and it's worth some money there. And that, dude, we're already fighting. We haven't gotten to wide receivers yet. What's going on?
Matt, we like to fight, okay? You know this. We're fighters and lovers, okay? I do think I saw a good comment here. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly from Casey Rogers. Just give him the same offer as last year with the guarantees, more like 65, 70 rather than the 36 offered last year. The only thing that kept him from signing last year, again, was the guarantees. I think you're probably spot on right now. I mean, I think he would accept the same offers last year with more guarantees. That was the talk all along. 36, truthfully, did seem a little low guarantee-wise. It's basically getting out after 2 seasons, right? That's a 5-year deal, but 2 seasons are legit. Basically, the out on year 3. If you have more guaranteed money, you're married to each other long-term. The one thing I will say is knock on wood. I'm not going to knock right now because my dog's downstairs. Don't want him barking, but knock on wood, hypothetically, he's been fairly healthy. Even when he's been banged up, he's played through the majority of his injuries. And that is something that is worth some extra money.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. On these contracts, don't forget, the first number is always a lie. Always a lie. So if they say 5 years for 100 and whatever million, the chances that they're ever going to meet the 100 and whatever million, like it is about that guaranteed money. I think last year the guaranteed money was a bit insulting. And so it made sense that he came in late and came in salty. Of course, winning cures everything. And now we're back in good standing. We want to get into a little bit of Frank discussion on Frank Clark. I want to play a new game I just made up a half hour ago. But, folks, we do have a great opportunity for you from our friends at BetMGM.
Let me hit this for you. And I love that Matt Conner was so nice in our little pregame show. It says, Sterling, LOL, I make you do all the ad reads. I appreciate you, Conner. This is from BetMGM. If you use the code Arrowhead, you get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win. Yes, 1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win. And if you're like me, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to win. It's a minimum $10 bet required. New customers only. 21 plus and present in Kansas. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-522-4700 Kansas. See full terms at betmgm.com or in the description below. 2 more comments I want to hit to very quickly. Clint McKenzie, dude. By the way, Clint, you're a great dude. Just want to say this. You're always so positive and kind on Twitter in the comment section. When you write a review, you're just a good dude. I want to grab a beer with you sometime. I know you're out there, I believe, in California, but I would love to grab a beer sometime. He says, you guys are great together. Even your fights are respectful. There's a reason I look forward to this show all week. Thank you, man. Doug in Kansas. Chat is the MVP crew. True that, Doug. Jesus Perez says, is Sterling drunk? No, it takes a lot more than 7.5% beer to get Sterling drunk. Come on now. I just think That's only more than one. I just want to say, I'm not drunk. I'm just saying Orlando Brown Jr. deserves a little bit more respect. I think. I think that's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm not saying he's elite, but I'm saying he got better as the season went on, and I'm getting more and more on the side of. I think you can pay him $22 million a year and be okay.
Yeah. Let's have a frank discussion about Frank Clark, right? This is a big piece of the puzzle, I think, because if you can bring him back in a way, look, right now the Chiefs have to do something about Frank Clark. We said this last year too, where last year we were like, oh my gosh, get rid of Frank Clark. This contract's an albatross. This guy's ruining the defensive line. I was almost to the point where people were almost, it was like, I don't know if it was worth the Super Bowl he gave us for dealing with all, like no one really said that, but like there was a lot of hate around Frank Clark. After watching him dominate for another stretch run, after witnessing him play through a lot of, like if he's got Crohn's disease, which I've never seen that documented as that direct, but there is some ongoing stomach related illness that causes him. Look, man, I know firsthand from family that Crohn's is no joke at all. If Frank is playing through some sort of condition like that on a regular basis, and then saving his best for when it matters the most, if he's mentoring guys at like Karlaftis and others, and look, Andy Reid swears by him, Veach swears by him, his teammates swear by him. And here's the quote I was going to read earlier. I just want to read this, and then I want to have a frank discussion with you here. Here's Veach from today, folks. Here's what Brett Veach said. We'll probably, to a certain extent, need some cap space. We have a long history with Frank and his agent, too. He'll be one of the many conversations we have this week. That's in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. And we look forward to getting with him and seeing if we can work something out that makes sense for both parties. In other words, this sort of like very black and white treatment of the matter. Either Frank is going to make a ton of money and rob the Chiefs, or Frank's going to be cast out and never back in Kansas City again. Like there probably is a middle ground here, and Brett Veach seems very amenable to it. So if that's the case, do you like that, Sterling? Do you like Frank back in Kansas City next year? And if so, like what are the parameters that you like him?
Yeah, I think he's coming back. First and foremost, he's not going to get a big payday. I think that's pretty much, I don't want to say set in stone because we never know, but Frank Clark at his age, at his production level, I would be shocked if he got some Von Miller deal, right? That's not in the cards for him. Yeah. And I think he'll start entering into his Carlos Dunlap role, if you will, because I think the Chiefs draft another edge. Mike Dana has been impressive. I mean, he's improved year over year. He'll probably start getting more and more run. So Frank Clark's going to start turning into, as I saw from Angry Drunken German, great analogy here. He's a relief pitcher, and I'm fine with that. It's a good point. But relief pitchers don't make the same money as starters. Frank Clark knows this, and the Chiefs know this. You pay him as a relief pitcher. I think his deal does get restructured. Looking at his contract right now for next year, what's that? $20 million plus base salary, a cap hit of over $28 million. That's just not going to fly. Right. He knows that. The Chiefs know it. Brett Veach was pretty much upfront about it. So with him not having a big market, he seems to be a dude who wants to win. He's been putting a lot of value on all these mics, with the mic'd up. When you hear him on a mic, it's always about winning, winning, winning. If he values that, he'll take a deal here in Kansas City. Will probably look something more like what the Carlos Dunlap deal was. He'll start transitioning more into a lesser role here. But again, in the playoffs, like Brian Mueller says, Frank is clutch. He is. He is. I mean, you saw him as the season went on into the playoffs when the game is on the line, when it matters, he still has enough left in the tank. Can you count on him week in and week out? Like you mentioned with the stomach issues? Don't know if you can, but don't know if you have to. The issue all along, for the most part, was the contract. You look at the contract and say he's not worth it. If he was making half that money, you're saying it was worth it. It's a good deal because he shows up in big moments. They'll get a deal done with Frank Clark.
I want to push back just a little bit here because I don't know that Frank Clark is as done as what we're making him out to be. And I get the relief pitcher bit, but just looking at his snap counts, Frank played 69% of all snaps on defense last year for 15 games, 15 starts. That's a major. I mean, those are starters reps for the full season, which is a long season now, 17 games, and then he played into the playoffs. So he is playing starters reps for 17, 18, 19 games. He played more percentage of the snaps last year than 3 of his 4 seasons in Seattle. So he's still logging major miles. Now, I know that those are going down. I know that we're trying to get more youthful, but I'm just saying I don't know that a newly drafted guy is actually going to have the pressure that Karlaftis had last year. If the Shark is still around, I actually think you still pencil him in as a starter and the guy like Mike Dana in competition for some of those reps and a new guy and make them earn it. I still think that Frank Clark could be a starter for this team and he can log those reps. Now, that may not be the best use. I think all of us would probably like to see 45% versus 70. That's Mike Dana territory. I also think Mike Dana has earned a good shot at getting the starters reps. I'd like to see them try to trade those two. But I'm saying looking at the playing time given to him, the Chiefs aren't fading him out. I mean, the Chiefs, he played 3 or 4% less than last year. He's still playing a ton of reps. If the Chiefs want to plan that drop off, that's fine. I just don't know as a fan that that's going to happen until it happens.
My only pushback would be he had 5 sacks in 69% of snaps. That's a lot of opportunity and not a lot of result. Again, a lot of those came in big moments, and we know about the playoffs. We're not going to be in disagreement there.
Right.
But it comes down to, I think, it was a necessity. They had to play Frank Clark because they didn't have a better option. Carlos Dunlap was Melvin Ingram, which equals a pass rush situation only for the most part. I don't know how many percentage of snaps he played, but 25, 30%, not an every down guy. I think Frank Clark was at a necessity. George Karlaftis really helped this defensive line because if he was not ready to go game 1, week 1, they would have been screwed.
Yeah.
I think you would not like to see Frank Clark play 69% of snaps. I think they would like to see him transition more into a relief role. That's not just me saying that, but I think it's probably what the team would feel as well. And I hope the contract reflects that. Again, I don't see a market for him. I don't see another team in the NFL that says, yeah, we want to give Frank Clark 69% of snaps, at least not a contender. And I think that's a big deal for Frank Clark in his own right. I think he cares more about winning than he does about getting a majority of the snap count. That'd be my opinion on the guy. He seems like a winner. He seems to value that more than almost anything else.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. And I do think even in this conversation, I have figured out myself, I would like to see another significant draft investment at defensive end. You have to have one. But I really, really think Mike Dana could be something bigger than any of us have seen. He looked so good last year in limited bursts, and no one ever talks about him like, well, he could be the guy opposite Karlaftis. And I'm going, why not? Why not? I'd love to see him.
I will say this about Mike Dana. By the way, he also had 5 sacks last year. So whatever his snap count was, same sack. Again, sacks are not the end all be all. So I apologize for using such a rudimentary number here. But he had 5 sacks and however many snap counts less than Frank Clark. So same amount of sacks, that many amount less.
He played 54%. He played 54% of
so
snaps.
So 15% less than, right? 69,
yeah.
Nice, versus 54. I do think an investment gets made, though, at D end. I
For
just
sure.
would prefer to see more and more investment. By the way, Mike Dana was a guy who made me believe in I don't want to say finished product, but more on the floor and less on the ceiling. Because for so long here in Kansas City, we've been sold on potential.
Yep.
Tano Passanio, Bashad Breeland, Joshua Kando, right? Breeland speaks. That's who I think I was meaning to say. What have they done?
Even D Ford, for that matter, who didn't blossom until
D Ford had a good year, or a good couple years in Kansas City.
Right, but he was later arriving than what we would have liked.
Sure. The point is, we always talk about potential.
Yeah.
Give me actual game ready guys. Give me something you know. That's why I love the pick of Karlaftis. That was why I said before they drafted George Karlaftis that I hope the Chiefs get him. And the reason why was because of Mike Dana. Mike Dana changed a lot of my opinion when it comes to, oh, you want this high upside guy. You want this, this, and this. You want the length, the athleticism. Sometimes just give me a dude who can play ball. I don't care what the upside is.
Yeah.
Dana's already had more upside than I thought he would. Give me a dude who can play. Dana can play, and I'm with you. He deserves a bigger opportunity.
Love it. I love it. This is actually a great segue. I made up a game. This is so stupid. It's really not a game. We're just going to talk more Chiefs. But let's play a quick round. Could you, would you, and should you is what I called it. It's all going to fall apart here in a second, so forget any of this. But you were just talking about floor, and that's actually the perfect segue here, because I want to talk about Andrew Wiley, right? Like Andrew Wiley last year came to the Chiefs on another one-year deal, $2.5 million. Best money they spent. Best money they spent outside of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all the obvious answers that people are going to throw out there.
Juju Smith-Schuster on a one-year, like $3 million deal, but he had every incentive, so it ended up being like just under 10. But that was also a steal.
That was good. Yeah. But look, Andrew Wiley, we all love the lunch pail quality. He did great. I've seen some like market valuations, so to speak, that Wiley could come in around, let's say, $7 million, right? Let's say Wiley gets out there at $7-8 million on a 1 year, maybe 2-3, whatever it is. Suddenly that changes the perspective there. Now you were talking about how much you value. Give me the guy who can just play. That's certainly Wiley, right? Like not the ceiling, but he gives you the floor. How much does this apply? I titled this, I was like, could you, would you, should you? Now the Chiefs could bring back Wiley, but would you and should they? What do you think?
I think you could, but only if you truthfully believe that he is your starting right tackle. I think he can be a right tackle. You can win a Super Bowl with him, as he just showed.
Yeah.
He stepped up a lot of times in big games. I know folks like to point at the pressure numbers, but the reason why the pressure numbers for him and even Orlando Brown Jr. were so high, the Chiefs dropped back and passed more than any other team in the NFL. So those are going to be inflated. You have to look at the presser percentages. Now, I'm not saying Wiley is elite by any means. He's not, but he was serviceable. Now, do you pay $7 million a year for serviceable? I don't know. I do think he gets that number, by the way. I think it's a very fair evaluation, if not more. Cam Irving signed a 2-year, $10 million contract in 2021. And I think we'd both like to all say here in Chiefs Kingdom, Andrew Wiley's better than Cam Irving. So, and that was also in 2021. So you're probably looking at least $7 million per year for Andrew Wiley. The only reason why I would say he's probably not back, not just the money reason, I think the Chiefs have faith in Lucas Niang and maybe even Darian Kennard. They've been trying for a couple off seasons now to try and replace Andrew Wiley. Well, Wiley kept showing out that he was the best option. Niang kept getting injured, and Kennard, I just don't think he ever showed enough. He never flashed. They even moved him to guard at one point.
Yeah.
Right tackle's a spot where you can get a lot of times a rookie and plug and play. It's not the most important position, but I go back and forth this, and you're right, because Wiley does have the floor. I just think if I was the Kansas City Chiefs, if this was me making the decision, I wouldn't pay that, and I'd prefer to pay some extra money to either a wide receiver or Orlando Brown Jr. and go with Lucas Niang, Darian Kennard, or a rookie. I just think you can get by with a cheaper option at right tackle. I wish the best for Wiley. Dude, like you mentioned, the best value maybe in the entire NFL. I just think he's going to finally get a contract that he deserves. It'll be his first large contract in the NFL. If I were him, I'd take the money.
Sure, sure. How quickly could that fall apart? Playing devil's advocate, Lucas Niang shows up, another injury of some kind. Kennard, just too much of a non-proper technique mauler, plays better in the middle, in the interior than he does with any sort of finesse on the outside versus the best rushers in the NFL. Suddenly, then you said you draft a rookie to compete with those two. I could see a scenario, a pretty realistic scenario, in which your sort of trio of dominoes all fall over looking ugly. And suddenly the Chiefs have Pro Bowler, Pro Bowler, Pro Bowler, could be Pro Bowler, and then turnstile on the right side because we didn't keep a floor.
Yeah.
Like would you also add a cheap veteran to that? Like is that what you would propose?
Yeah, I think you could find a veteran who would give similar production. Not quite Andrew Wiley, or maybe not the versatility of Wiley, but for $4 million less than him per season, probably. I think you could easily find that. You look, whatever Andrew Wiley got this year going into it, probably a deal you could give to a plethora of other veteran right tackles. It would be probably similar production, and then you're still saving that extra money to either give to Orlando Brown Jr. or a wide receiver, or just a position of need. If you think you want to extend L'Jarius Sneed, there you go. I see Angry Drunken German says, go big for Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. Second or third round right tackle, protect the hell out of the franchise. Now, I would not be opposed to Laramie Tunsil either. You could sway me into saying there's a case or multiple scenarios where that makes sense and it could behoove Kansas City to go for Laramie Tunsil. I'll listen. I'll listen to Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. I'm not going to shut that one down.
I will say, just for the Veach level of excitement that can happen when he does these, like, let me blow it up moves. Like, I love it. Like when they first traded for Frank Clark, when they first traded for Orlando, I absolutely love the sensation of like, what? Like, I love the what the hell is he doing responses. Not like in a bad way, but just in a holy hell, where was that coming from sort of move. I'd like to see one of those just to shake it up, but we're probably not going to get it. We're it would behoove us to get it, but yeah, we're not going to get it. Let's play another round here. Could you, would you, should you? Now look, there's a lot of discussion here. Keenan Allen is complimenting the Chiefs on Twitter. DeAndre Hopkins is doing the eyes emoji at the idea of coming to the Chiefs. And then today, Kenny Golladay was released. The great 2019 Pro Bowler Kenneth Golladay III. I don't know if that's true or not. Like he comes free and everyone's like, oh, yeah, give him a veteran minimum. I'm just throwing these veteran names out at you and saying, like, could you, would you, should you?
So I'll say you right now, don't give me Kenny Golladay. Please no. Dog couldn't get playing. Nothing against Kenny Golladay. He's had a very nice career, okay? I'm not trying to take shots at Kenny Golladay, but if you couldn't find playing time on the Giants, a team that needed wide receiving help all season long, if you couldn't see the field, no. That's more washed than when you can't get a smell out of a sweater. Okay, you wash it 3 or 4 times. You're like, I can't get this out. Why does it still smell like bourbon and mustard? I don't know, but it's stuck in there and it's stuck there forever. That's Kenny Golladay. He's so washed, you can't get it out. Okay, D-Hop. Interesting, but you just showed You don't need to pay a dude $25+ million a season at wide receiver to have the number one ranked offense in the NFL. I like DeAndre Hopkins in a nutshell, but he's what, 30 plus at this point? 31, I think, is his age. No, I wouldn't. I like DeAndre Hopkins, but
30.
30. I like DeAndre Hopkins, but if you like Spotrac, which I do, I think it's a very good source. His market value, what their best estimation is 3-year, 69 million, so 23 million per season. Do you want to pay D Hop 23 million?
But he has a current deal. He's unhappy with it, but it's a very good deal in terms of.
Yeah, he's unhappy with it. So yeah, bring in a guy who's unhappy with the deal who wants to get paid to an organization who doesn't deal with that. No, I'm out. It's all fun and games in Madden, but if you have someone come in and say, I care more about a deal, which I'm not saying he would. If you're on the Chiefs, that's a lot different than being on the Arizona Cardinals. I get it.
Right.
I wouldn't do it, though. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't bring in someone who does not have or who's not happy with their current contract. That seems like a risk too big to take in my mind. That's a $25+ million per year risk on a wide receiver who's 30 years old and older. No, thank you. Keenan Allen, he's getting up there in age. He's on a, $15 million deal, I believe. Just quick reaction. Next year. 20 million, I think is what it is, basically. About 20 million next year. That's still a little too rich for my taste. Now, Keenan Allen, he might want to resign on a cheaper deal. He's not what he once was. He's been injury. I know folks like to say Keenan Allen's not injury prone. Okay, he's not injury prone, but he misses a lot of games. There you go. Keenan Allen's a good wide receiver, and he feels like he'd be a great fit in this offense. But even that's too rich for my taste. The Chiefs have just proven you don't need to pay an elite wide receiver for Mahomes this offense to have success. So why would you go against that? I know it helps. It's fun. If you want Mahomes to break some records, sure, go ahead. But if you want to have a more well-rounded team, don't pay a wide receiver, elite wide receiver money. They walked on Tyreek Hill for a reason.
I mean, I just couldn't disagree with you more, even though I get your logic, I get your argument, I get all that. I've heard it all. I just don't know that I believe it all. Just because you do something once doesn't mean you'll be able to do it again. Here's what I know. You and I were biting our fingernails, wondering if Travis Kelce was going to be able to play in a conference championship because a 34-year-old tight end suddenly had back pain. And then he ended up being able to play. Now, he ended up playing. He had a wonderful year. He set career marks this year. But the last time I checked, anytime I've ever had back pain like that or an athlete has back pain like that, it doesn't go away. I don't know that Travis Kelce is going to get healthier and healthier the more he plays or play more snaps more and more. And I get what you're saying about, well, they didn't just have a good wide receiver. But the caveat there is they've had Travis Kelce next to this group of wide receivers this entire time. What happens if the bottom drops out of the tight end position and your best pass catcher is Juju Smith-Schuster or Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Kadarius Toney? What do you do with that? I think the Chiefs left on Tyreek Hill because, they didn't just get rid of Tyreek Hill saying, we will never pay a top wide receiver. That's not what happened. They got rid of Tyreek Hill because the finances in that moment, in that market, didn't work for where they were at. Everything has a context. And so it's not like Brett Veach drew a line last year that said, we will never pay a wide receiver near top of the market money. That wasn't like a declaration made. It was, we can't pay Tyreek what the market's demanding right now, and we have to do something about it. So I'm not saying they need to go get Devontae Adams or anything like that. I'm just saying if something could happen to Travis Kelce, which it can, I get really worried.
Don't you dare. He is a golden god, sir.
I get very worried. I get very worried about what can happen to this group of pass catchers. It's not that the Chiefs can't make a move then if they need to, but if I can get Nuke Hopkins on a deal that winning will kind of cure some of his ills, that dude is killer. That dude is amazing. I mean, people say he missed games last year, but so many of those were for suspension. Look, and by the way, Keenan Allen, who I would be over the moon if Keenan Allen joined the Chiefs. And I know people say, "Oh, he's injury prone." Look, he played 10 games last year, and then he played every single game the year before, 14 games the year before, every single game the year before, every single game the year before that, and every single game the year before that. The idea that he's injury prone drives me totally fucking bananas because no, he's not. He's as injury prone as Juju Smith-Schuster. Is that injury? In fact, Juju misses more games than he does. So sorry, but yeah, there's been this label attached because of some very key injuries at key points. I don't get it.
Keenan Allen's perpetually questionable, and if you play fantasy football, that's probably why he's perpetually questionable.
I get it, but the dude plays and he produces, and we've seen him twice a year, and he's good, very good. I'm for it. I don't want them to break the bank for a receiver. I totally get it. There are bigger needs right now, but I like the idea of adding some greater target because I will say I am worried about the back spasms that crept up and surprised Kelsey. I mean, he even said that. I woke up, I was surprised. It happened at the very end of practice. Suddenly my back flares up and I can't do anything. I wondered if I could even play the game. That's tough, man. That's tough. I hope he gets a lot of rest. I hope they figure out good routines. But NFL seasons are long, and he's been remarkably productive for such a long time. Without Kelsey, and also now without Hill, I just get worried about that. That's it. That's what I'm saying.
So the reason why I'm out on DeAndre is going to be his age. And I think when you look at guys, once they hit their 31, the season's going to start at 31, you're getting up there in age, Keenan Allen as well. And we're talking about guys who have been elite. I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins is done. It's not what I'm saying. But when you look at other guys who were quote unquote elite at the time, they start getting into this age, there's a pretty significant drop off. You would probably say Julio Jones was elite. And what happened? Fell off a cliff. AJ Green's the next one I was going to bring up. I just don't want to pay $23 million in a 3-year contract. Next thing you know, after year one, maybe 1 year is great. You got 2 more years on there. I don't want that. I think you save your money, you go younger, and a guy I could look at would be Brandon Ayuk. I could be intrigued by a Brandon Ayuk. It sounds like him and the Niners have some sort of disagreement. He wants to get extended. Looking at Spot Track, looking at what their numbers have, the market value for him is 4-year, $71 million, just around $18 million per season. I could get behind that. He's 24 years old. I just don't want to get an aging guy and pay him top dollar and then have all these what ifs. Give me someone younger. Give me a dude in the draft. Again, we just saw what Mahomes and his offense can do without an elite wide receiver one. Don't overpay for a luxury when you have the necessities.
I totally get it. I'm trying to be proactive here. That said, I say all this about Kelsey, but I've seen mock drafts giving the Chiefs a tight end in the first round, and I would just I would vomit. I would go in person and vomit all over Brett Veach if he takes a tight end in the first round. I just would die. I think I would die. Would you die?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would probably. Well, probably not. I would hope not, because I like life a lot. I really enjoy doing this podcast with you, so I hope you don't either. But
you're solo. If anyway, whatever.
And I need more puns.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Just a couple quick comments here. Tom Hood says Kelsey needs to do some DDP yoga. That stuff works. I think it does, man. Something Diamond Dallas Page knows what he's doing. Future Trunks, we need Kelsey to play like Lockett, catch the ball and fall to the ground. I mean, whatever works. Mark Johnson says you can't keep having Mahomes playing without a number one receiver. I mean, I would understand. I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think Kelsey fills that role. At the same time, Sterling could just hold up a Lombardi trophy and say what? And make the argument there. So I get it. I get it both ways. That's why I love these arguments, because you can make good arguments from both sides. And yeah. One more quick one here. Are you even interested in Jalen Ramsey? Peter
Nope.
King,
Get out of here.
Okay, good.
Get out of here. I won't even let you finish it.
Get out of here, Peter King. You're not the king.
You didn't pay Travarius Ward. And now there's talk about L'Jarius Sneed. Jalen Ramsey's getting up there in age. He's been, I don't want to say a malcontent, but dude likes to get paid. We know this. He's about this. Sign out. Get off. No chance.
And we didn't discuss the L'Jarius Sneed trade thing, but are you off that? Stop smoking, people. Stop smoking. Are you in on this?
No, I'm not in on it, but I can see a reason why. This is too long of a conversation for today. We'll have another one regarding L'Jarius Sneed. I can see a reason why folks say you can get by without him based on the Chiefs have done a phenomenal job developing young, unheralded talents as well. They have a lot of young, youthful pieces already on the roster. They just have a scheme that apparently works for certain corners. They know what to look for. They can address that. And by the way, L'Jarius Sneed was one of those unheralded corners that they turned into what he is today. I like L'Jarius Sneed a lot. I hope he sticks around because I think his versatility is unmatched in the NFL currently. But again, I can understand the argument of the other. I'm very much I can be swayed either way, especially if you were blown away by an offer. But you would have to do it this year. You would not let him play one more year and then say, all right, now we don't know, because then you get nothing for him. Either you take the money and run, or you let him play out his contract and extend him. There's no in between.
I'm all in. I'm all in on Sneed for life in Kansas City. He's the chess piece. I want to keep him around. Well, folks, we've reached the end of our show, at least football-wise. But before we go, we always transition to our wonderful producer, Richard. I summon him. Richard, are you here?
I am here.
I can make him appear with wiggled fingers.
You did.
So every show, we end our show with what's called the must list. It's our rundown of things we recommend. Everything from crazy manga, anime stuff to not so crazy music or movies or books or whatever. Richard's shaking his head because it probably is a crazy manga that he's got for us. Anyway, we're here to recommend a few things. Richard, what's your recommendation for the week? What's on this week's must list for you?
Well, Connor, you're a smart ass on the outline. You wrote anime about centaur with axes for hooves. I wish that existed. If that does exist, please DM me. But I'm gonna lean into it. So take that. I am going to recommend an anime. We're recommending an anime called Dr. Stone. It kicks ass. Third season comes out in April. The premise, all right, guys? Basically, all around the world, a green flash of light occurs, and then every human gets turned into stone. And then time passes for 3,700 years. Everything just goes away. There's just stone statues everywhere. But one kid gets out, a 15-year-old smart prodigy named Senku gets out, and it's his objective to rebuild society any way possible. Really cool premise, and it also plays into my favorite thing, which is primitive technology channels. So basically he just has to build everything from scratch, so you feel real smart watching it, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that now if things were to go this way. So Dr. Stone, check it out. I love it.
How do you watch that, by the way?
That's on VRV. I'm using VRV, which is a common anime service. You can also use Crunchyroll, and then maybe it shows up on like Adult Swim late at night. But yeah,
I know like 7 words of the things you talk about, Richard, and I absolutely love it. Crunchyroll, that's a sushi. Come on.
Yeah, it is a sushi.
I'm hungry now. Sterling, what about you, brother?
Audio Slave. The album by Audio Slave. When I was driving to Louisville, I drove 8 hours, basically 9 hours, and it rained the whole time. And we had to stop for an hour because of a tornado on I-70. And so when I got there, you know what I felt like? I am the highway. I am the highway. And so I was like, fuck yeah. I love Audioslave. Great album. Love Chris Cornell. Dude was just legendary. It was Chris Cornell basically with the cast of Rage Against the Machine, but great songs like A Stone, Gasoline, Show Me How to Live. Song number 1, which you can drum to, but I can never know how to pronounce. Cochise? I don't know how to pronounce it. Rich is shaking his head.
I'm assuming. Yeah, I mean, that's how I've pronounced it. Sure.
Same. I have no idea. Great song, though. Hell of an album. Love it. That's my must list.
It is great. It is great. I was rocking old Wallflowers earlier this week, Bringing Down the Horse. Did you guys ever listen to that?
The band, The Wallflowers?
Yeah, the Wallflowers. Jacob Dylan, Bob Dylan's son, and the whole. I love Jacob Dylan. I love anything he does. Solo stuff, side projects, the Wallflower. It was my high school years. I grew up on this stuff. So yeah, anyway, I've just been like rocking to it all over again, like it's 90s. Anything with a Hammond B3 organ, right? Like the big. I love Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and whatever. I love all that stuff. So yeah, I'm totally in. So that's what I've been cranking out this week. Richard's like, you're like an old white guy. Get out of here with your.
Watch an anime, Matt. Come on, get with the times.
I know.
And Matt Conner was one that said me is going to be some like jam band from 1977. How dare you, Conner? Turns out it was you. It was you with the old stuff. Patrick Allen, this podcast feels like a beat up truck. We really are like a 1977 Chevy Silverado, just beat up work truck, but it gets you from point A to point B. It's like a hard day's work. Oh, well, sorry. I guess I suck.
Sterling's only 13 years old, so you have to make any sort of pop cultural illusion. If it has to come.
Okay, at least that truck probably has one headlight, though.
It better if it's going to be legal.
There you go. There's the difference. All right, folks. My name is Matt Conner. You're with Sterling Holmes and Richard Durante, our producer. We all love you. We all appreciate you guys even tuning in for the antics. Come for the puns. Stay for the football. As always, we're here to serve. If you can leave us a review and ask a question and all that good stuff. Sorry, I'm just really hungry, so I'm like bumbling this outro. But go Chiefs, go draft, go Patrick, go Matt Verderam. We're out of here.